Hannibal Rising is a 2006 psychological horror thriller revenge story written by Thomas Harris that was turned into a movie of the same name in 2007. In the Hannibal book/movie story universe, this takes place before Hannibal, before Silence of the Lambs, and even before Red Dragon. This is a prequel and origin story for the character Hannibal Lecter. It tells us about Hannibal's upbringing in Castle Lecter in Lithuania. Of course he lived in a castle. And how his once peaceful upbringing was destroyed by the horrors of World War II. Every adult in his family was killed in an unintentional skirmish, and then Hannibal was left alone with his younger sister, Misha, who he was very close with. And these bad guys that were holding them captive were really evil dudes, and they ended up killing and eating Misha to avoid dying of starvation. The rest of the book is Hannibal as a young adult around 18 years old while he's enrolled in medical school. He's a student, and he goes on this revenge quest to get back at everyone who killed and ate his sister. Hannibal Rising is generally regarded as it's alright by fans and critics alike. I've never read the book or seen the movie until doing the work for making this video, and now that I have experienced the story, I get why. No one, including myself, would be surprised if you placed Hannibal Rising, both the book and the movie adaptation, at the bottom of your ranking list of the Hannibal movies and novels. So why did Thomas Harris write Hannibal Rising? Because the last one that came out before this was Hannibal, which came out in 1999. The end of that feels pretty conclusive. I don't feel like anything more was needed. That was like a good send-off for Hannibal and Clarice, and I don't see where the story universe can go from there. Well, if you're familiar with my channel, you may know that I'm a big fan of the Matrix series. And I know it's kind of a random tangent, but I'm going to relate this to Hannibal Rising. 1 second. There was this very interesting scene in the fourth Matrix movie where Neo is talking to his boss, and his boss says,
"I'm sure you can understand why our beloved parent company, Warner Brothers, has decided to make a sequel to the trilogy."
What?
They informed me they're going to do it with or without us.
I thought they couldn't do that.
Oh, they can. And they made it clear they'll kill our contract if we don't cooperate.
If what this archived link to this Entertainment Weekly article says is true, then it sounds like that's a very similar situation for what happened with Hannibal Rising. Movie producer Dino De Laurentiis wanted to have another Hannibal Lecter movie made, so he came to the author Thomas Harris, said, "Make me another Hannibal Lecter story," and he said, "No, I'm done, I don't want to." So allegedly, Dino said to Thomas Harris, "Well, we came to you as a courtesy because you're the author, but we're going to have one written whether or not you're involved. If you want to be the one to write it, then great, but if not, we'll get someone else, because they own the rights. He just writes the books. They own the rights to the movies." If it is true, it does seem like he was kind of creatively blackmailed into writing this. Well, I say that, and allegedly, according to the article, there was a very big paycheck for Thomas Harris. So, it's not like a lose-lose situation. I mean, he wasn't really interested, but he got a lot of money for doing it. So, whatever. Although he was not interested in making another Hannibal story, I get why Thomas Harris did it if the story is true, because I know I would have a hard time letting someone else just write another Hannibal Lecter story if that was like my character, my universe. This whole thing is his creative baby. Hannibal Rising is a prequel origin story, as I've said, and it suffers from the same general existential problems that most other prequel stories do. Take the Star Wars prequels, for example. I remember as they were being released in theaters, there was this general sense of, we know what's going to happen to this young man Anakin because of episodes 4, 5, and 6. And in Better Call Saul, we know Saul and Mike and Gus survive because we've seen Breaking Bad. So with that same logic, in Hannibal Rising, we know Hannibal's not going to die at the end because he's in 3 or 4 movies after this. So that's just a big part of the general plot tension is just removed, whether or not the main guy is going to make it, survive the end of the story, because obviously he is. Then I suppose the main entertainment value for this is supposed to be watching Hannibal's origin story and how he goes on a revenge quest, which is cool, but I have 2 main issues with this. Number 1 is part of the thing about Hannibal Lecter as a character is I never really felt like he needed an explanation. He never really needed an origin story. Did you ever feel like he needed one? He's just such an evil, manipulative psychopath that no explanation is needed. He's a perfect blend of creepy and mysterious, and his origin story never really seemed to matter to me. My second issue is that we basically get the whole story of this book told in this book in several chapters of flashbacks and dream sequences that Hannibal has. Those chapters are like the Cliff Notes version of Hannibal Rising, and it's more or less understood that those events in his childhood that we saw in flashbacks in this story had a huge psychological impact that caused a lot of damage on young Hannibal Lecter and helped shape him into the monster that we know. So seems a little redundant from the get-go. Could just be me. Hannibal Rising ends up becoming this fairly straightforward revenge story, which is cool, but compared to the other entries in the series, just doesn't seem as deep or thematically complex. Hannibal gets his revenge and survives at the end, and, well, that's it. Did killing all those people satisfy the void in his soul? Did it satiate his bloodlust and make him lead a happy, normal life afterwards? No, obviously, we know it didn't. He still becomes a supervillain later on. So why are we watching this? I don't know. It's not like there's a huge surprise at the end of the story either. All that said, this video isn't just going to be me trashing Hannibal Rising, because I do feel there are things to enjoy and appreciate about every movie. And there are a number of interesting differences between the book and the movie. So enough of me blabbing, let's get into this. Overall, the writing style for Hannibal Rising just felt a little different than the other Hannibal books. It felt choppy and hard to follow at times. And the cynical way of looking at this, you could just say that Thomas Harris was coerced into writing this and was uninspired and lazy, just trying to get his big paycheck. The less cynical way of looking at the different writing style for Hannibal Rising, you could point to the very beginning of this book, because it starts with a narrator or a tour guide taking us through Hannibal's memory palace. If you've read the other Hannibal books, you know that this memory palace thing is an imaginary mental construct of a physical space inside Hannibal's head that he routinely explores and revisits as a way to help pass the time while he's sitting in jail. He'd only have small portions of memories from a certain scene that was more horrific, and more complete memories from more happy moments. Stylistically speaking, I'll give Thomas Harris the benefit of the doubt and assume this was an intentional storytelling device. I hope. So the Hannibal Rising book started the story by framing it as a guide through Hannibal's memory palace. The movie did not, and I kinda wish it did. When they made Hannibal Rising the movie, it was still riding high off the fumes of the Anthony Hopkins movie series. So if they had included it, here's what I picture. We pick up right at the end of the Hannibal movie where he's flying on that plane to an unknown location. He dozes off on the long plane flight, and then the story of Hannibal Rising begins with some kind of narration like it did in the book, and it would frame the whole Hannibal Rising movie story as a dream or a memory. I say all this because in the Hannibal 1999 book, there was a whole scene where he was taking a nap on a plane and having flashbacks and nightmares about his childhood. So if they had included it, to me this would further tie in the Hannibal Rising movie into the rest of the Anthony Hopkins movie series, and would have created some more coercion, some more synergy, use those corporate words, between the movies, because they can feel a little disjointed if you watch them back to back. The Hannibal Rising book featured a handful of characters that were not in the movie at all. Two of the most important ones I felt were, in the book, Hannibal had an artist uncle, Robert Lecter, who picked him up from the orphanage. However, in the movie, Hannibal just ran away on his own. This change isn't that big of a deal because honestly, Robert Lecter didn't have that much to do in the book. He picked Hannibal up, brought him home, said a few lines, and then died of a heart attack not long after. The story can still work the same without him. Next character was Mr. Yakov, not Mr. Jakov. Come on, that's not how it's pronounced. Mr. Yakov was a Jewish man with a good education that the Lecter family hired to live with them to tutor Hannibal. There were some cool scenes in the book where Mr. Yakov was teaching Hannibal, and we got to see how freakishly smart young Hannibal Lecter was, especially in the areas of mathematics and languages. It's little character moments like that that I think if they left them in the movie would have helped. Now let's get into some of the more general, just book versus movie differences that I noted. These roughly go in chronological order, but I haven't really sorted them. Let's begin. So in chapter 1 in the book, there's this really little beautiful bit of writing where the Lecter family is fleeing, and Hannibal points to the vapor trails left by the warplanes in the sky and pretends they're lines that form a musical staff, and the black dots left by the bombs were musical notes, and he was singing the melody that he saw in the sky to his sister Misha to try and comfort her. I thought that was just some beautiful imagery in the book that would have, again, been another nice little character moment to include in the movie. In the book, the scene where the guys in the tank approached the Lecter family in their hiding cabin, the tank guy was simply asking if they had any water to spare. I don't remember it happening like that in the movie. Not a huge difference, but a difference. The book also mentions a young Albanian boy who is held captive along with Hannibal and Misha by Grutas and his group of evil bandit guys. That young boy was not in the movie. In the book, Hannibal managed to keep a pair of binoculars from his father. It was one of the few personal items that he kept with him from his previous life before the war. In the book, he used the binoculars to do surveillance when he was stalking the guys he wanted to get revenge on. So if he did use binoculars in the movie, I don't recall them very clearly mentioning that they were a personal keepsake of his from before the war. That just seems like an important little thing that wouldn't take long to add in and would again be a nice little character moment. I don't know why they left a lot of this stuff out. There was a very minor subplot left out of the movie where Hannibal finds his Japanese aunt, the special cricket, as a present that made a unique chirping sound that is only found in Japan. He was thinking maybe she seemed homesick, wanted to cheer her up, so he went and found her the special gift. And I'm kind of fine with them leaving it out of the movie. It didn't really serve the plot at all. This kendo training scene with his aunt, Lady Murasaki, was totally made up for the movie. It's not bad, I just don't know what purpose it serves, really.
The most exquisite bits of the fish are the cheeks. This is true for many creatures.
This little line about fish cheeks was not in the book and was made up for the movie as a way to foreshadow what Hannibal would do to the first guy he kills. He cuts out a bit of his cheeks meat because that's like where the best meat is, I guess. I don't know. I've never eaten a human, so I wouldn't know. There was this really good scene in the book that was not in the movie at all. I kind of wish they had included this. His aunt, Lady Murasaki, takes Hannibal to therapy sessions to try and help him get over his trauma-induced muteness. After Hannibal's whole family was murdered, his sister was killed and eaten in front of him, caused a lot of psychological damage, so much so that as a teenager, he was rendered mute.
Let's hear you, little master. He's mute.
There was nothing physically wrong with his vocal cords, like he could speak and make noises.
He's not mute at night. He can scream well enough.
He just basically had such an extreme case of PTSD, I suppose, that he couldn't talk. He was just left in his own little evil world in his mind. At the therapist, Hannibal is reluctant to speak, but manages to respond to the psychiatrist by making primitive grunts and farting sounds with his mouth. Again, this would have been a funny little character moment to have included in the movie. I mean, you didn't have to include it in the movie, it's just kind of fun to see young Hannibal making fart sounds with his mouth. The movie omitted this scene that I really enjoyed from the book, where Hannibal was bargaining with this criminally insane man who is set to be executed so that he could use his corpse for medical school. In the book, it was just interesting to see Hannibal trying to get consent from a man who was criminally insane and was just not in the same room as him when he was talking. The man was going off on all of these different tangents, and it was interesting to watch young Hannibal Lecter dealing with insane people and how to manipulate them. An interesting plot point left out of the movie was when Hannibal is a young adult in Paris, he spotted one of his family's prized artworks from their collection back at Castle Lecter. Hannibal told Inspector Papil, who's a big character in the story, about the painting that he saw, and Inspector Papil interrogated the art dealer who was selling the old Lecter family artwork, and it helped Hannibal get some information that he used in his revenge quest. That was in the book, not in the movie. I really wish they had included that in the movie because I think it does fit his character very well. Just that connection to arts and culture would have been there from the very beginning. Grutas mentions, or Grutus, Grutas mentions that Misha had pneumonia when they killed her, which is part of the reason why they chose her, because she wouldn't last that long anyway.
She has pneumonia.
Let's take her. She's going to die anyway.
It's a little weird to me that they mentioned she had pneumonia in the movie because, one, I don't remember them mentioning that in the book. And my second issue is if they were in fact starving and were going to eat one of these two kids, why not eat Hannibal? Because he's bigger, there's more of him, you would get more food from him. And keeping him alive, he could pose more of a threat just because he's older and stronger than Misha. The movie's ending and the book's ending are both fairly similar. However, in the book, at the end, after Hannibal gets his revenge and blows up the bad guys' boats, he is soon arrested and thrown in jail, but becomes somewhat of a local hero for killing the scum of the earth, Nazi-sympathizing war criminals. And the book also mentions that while he was in jail, various student groups learned of his story and how he killed these bad guys, and they start protesting for his freedom. I just thought that was, again, interesting little character stuff they really should have left in. The book was an overall richer experience, I thought, than the movie. The movie was just a very 2007 style, straightforward revenge Hollywood kind of movie. In both the book and the movie, the very last kill Hannibal makes is at the end, where he tracks down and finds the last of the guys who killed and ate Misha, who now lives in Canada. Only difference is that in the book, after Hannibal kills that guy, he takes a train back from Canada to Baltimore, Maryland because he's enrolled at Johns Hopkins University, but he decides to make a pit stop in New York City to see a show, to see some theater production. Again, it's little moments like this that connect to his overall larger character where he has an affinity for high arts and culture. He, after murdering some guys, he just needs to make a pit stop to go see a theater show. Like, that's such a thing Hannibal would do. Why not have that in the movie? Next section, as always, here's some random fun thoughts and observations I had while watching this movie. So I'll start with the saddest one. Of all the guys to have played Hannibal Lecter, of all the older guys, Anthony Hopkins, Mads Mikkelsen in the TV show, Brian Cox in Manhunter, those guys are all currently still alive. The actor who played him in Hannibal Rising is not alive. He died fairly young. Say what you want critically speaking about the movie, but I felt that his performance was one of the best things about it. In the movie, when the tank guys approached the Lecter family, how in the world did they hear what he was saying?
Everybody out of the house!
Over the noise of the tank and the other warplanes and stuff, and they were like 100 feet apart. I would have been going, what? The first guy Hannibal kills solely for being rude was this character, Paul the Butcher. The actor playing him, to me, kind of looks like European Jack Black. I am Sven. Hey look, it's McNulty from The Wire, playing Inspector Popeil. In this establishing shot for the scene, I could be mistaken, but is that one of those screaming foxes that I'm hearing? Ever hear one of those foxes screaming like that? It's uncanny and kind of confusing because they sound a lot like a human being yelling. I could be wrong. My experience in kidnapping and torturing is fairly limited. However, I do feel like the ropes could have been tighter in this scene. In both the book and the movie, I get that his aunt, or step-aunt, whatever she is to him, is Japanese and has her ancestral samurai gear. And part of that gear is this face mask thing that goes over the lower part of your face. And it kind of looks like that face mask restraint thing Hannibal famously wore in the other movies. And just the inclusion of the samurai gear that Hannibal puts on later in the movie, he wears it, it just seems like a cheap way for the audience to be like, he's wearing that mask. Remember in the other movie he had that thing on? It's just like that. He's got the thing on. That's where he first got the thing. It's like they were trying to make Hannibal's face mask restraint like the Darth Vader helmet for him. And I don't know. It just doesn't work for me. If you made it to this point in the video, thank you very much. I appreciate it as always. This could be the last Hannibal book first movie video that I do, because Thomas Harris, he's an old guy now, and especially after this, I don't know if he's going to write any more Hannibal stories. So if you have watched my Hannibal book versus movies and Red Dragon adaptation showdown video, if you have watched them and enjoyed them so far, then, well, you're welcome. I hope you enjoyed this series. I had a lot of fun reading these books, watching the movies, comparing everything, making these videos, hearing everyone's different opinions and feedback. This isn't the last Hannibal related video that I'm going to make. I still want to talk about the Hannibal TV show, and I got that Hannibal Lecter and philosophy book, so maybe I'll make a review on that, a discussion on that book. But yeah, for now, this is the last Hannibal Lecter book first movie. I feel like this is the end of an era. Not much of an era at all, but I don't know. It's always a little sad when you get to the end of something. I really do like this series. Not everything can go on forever, but oh well. Until next time. Goodbye.